Welcome to the House of David, Life Everlasting, a PBS television series that will chronicle the life and times of the House of David. We are so happy that you're with us, but before we move on, we have to tell you about our underwriters. Those are the folks that helped us bring you this presentation.
Telling incredible stories and keeping the past alive, Moondog Productions is proud to bring you the great history of the House of David in Southwest Michigan. Find out more about Moondog Productions by going online to moondogpro.net.
The House of David Museum is proud to tell the stories of Southwest Michigan's rich history. Located in St. Joseph, Michigan, the House of David Museum has a wide array of memorabilia for your viewing pleasure. To schedule a tour, call 269-325-0039.
Post-production facilities provided by True Blue Farms in Grand Junction, Michigan. True Blue Farms has been contributing to the overall health and wellness to people all over the world for over 100 years with blueberries. Find out more at truebluefarms.com.
Telling Southwest Michigan's history through radio and podcast. Rob Bird's Moondog Show and the House of David podcast are happy to be a part of telling this great story. Find Rob Bird's Moondog Show or the House of David podcast at podbean.com.
Thank you for staying with us. I'm your host, Rob Bird. On this episode, we're going to feature the amusement park and all its great attractions. After that, Chris Siriano will join me in the studio to talk about it a little deeper. After that, we're going to show you the trailer to our film, The Bearded Boys of Baseball, because the next 3 episodes of this series are going to deal with baseball. So here we go. Without any further delay, the House of David, Life Everlasting. The amusement park that would eventually see over 35 million visitors was never intended to be a national attraction. It just grew to become one. What started with an ice cream store soon grew to an amusement park with trains, midget race cars, a beer garden, a zoo, and so much more. It was a paradise that caught the attention of so many.
It grew extremely rapid in the early days. And by 1908, they had purchased land from Eastman, Colonel Eastman, and they had this idea that they were going to build an amusement park. Part of the reason was they had an ice cream parlor behind their Jerusalem building, and they were already attracting curiosity seekers. And that ice cream parlor was becoming an attractive nuisance. So if we could put it across the street in an amusement park, we can sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We can make money on the tourist, and we can create housing and so forth for the impending ingathering. One of the most attractive, fairly regular event that would take place, and I think they took place on Monday nights, Chick Bell had an amateur hour, which was actually more than an hour, in which anyone, could try out and come and put their particular talent on display. And of course, Chick Bell would give you a flamboyant introduction and all that kind of thing. That went over very well.
Very early on, when the Australians came, they had a zoo in Australia. So one of the things that they wanted to add to Eden Springs was a zoo. So they had a lot of the Australian animals shipped over by boat to come to the House of David Zoo. And then with the help of their folks here, they brought in some pretty phenomenal animals and built an amazing zoo, and which is a big attraction. And they did that all the way until 1944. And it was right after the war ended that the government stepped in and said, okay, hang on. You can't have a zoo right here. You have a restaurant right here, right next to it. and you serve food. And we're not going to allow that. So they stopped. They shut the zoo down. They donated all the animals to the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, and they didn't have a zoo again. But they had monkeys and tigers and a big, beautiful bear cage and exotic animals, and they had exotic bird cages that were amazing birds and things like that from Australia. But it was a big attraction.
My dad lived there. So I was pretty much over there ever since I was born. We would go to the horses. They had a little pony ride, and the little ponies are all hooked up in a little circle, and you could sit on the pony and just walk around in a circle, which was exciting when you're 3 years old. And when I was 3, my dad decided I begged him to let me ride on the go-karts. And so I'm riding in this go-kart, and of course I'm just flooring it because I'm 3 years old. And Hans Daliger was the one who was running it, and he comes running over trying to stop me, and I ran over his foot and broke his foot. So my dad didn't let me ride on those for a really long time, but I will never forget that because it was so fun.
That park grew and grew and grew.
Most all of the zoo is completely gone now, except for the big lion cage building, and that's being restored as we speak. It's a beautiful building that's built on the far east corner of the amusement park, right next to the railroad. Marlon Perkins was a big part of that, helping Chick Bell with the zoo and eventually helping move the animals.
The nostalgia of the trains has been encapsulated in so many hearts and minds. Those that visited the park made memories that would last a lifetime. And for the House of David, the explosion of the amusement park fueled further growth and passion for the faith.
I remember everything about those trains. They were so, my dad was an engineer on the train, so of course I knew that my whole life growing up. And even to have him, like on a special occasion, would take the train around the park, and it just it was just like flying down the track. And I can still even hear it in my head when they'd get to the little crossing guard at one of the bridges, and there'd be a little dirt path that went across there, and he would blow the train whistle before they'd go over the trestle. And it was just, the three, it was like 4 whistles all together, but just going over it. And sometimes I can still, if I think about it, I can hear it. And then it would go around, and then it would pull into the South Depot, and you'd get out and, go check out all the souvenirs. There were so many, the souvenir stands were huge, and they had so much stuff, but it's like they sold the hydrostone and pennants and, the souvenir hats and all kinds of things that they had in there. Just postcards. I've got tons of postcards that I still have. And just so many things. And then you could buy ice cream and popcorn. And the ice cream was amazing because they made it from their own dairy cows, and the ice cream parlor with the little chairs with the little, circle backs, the little wire circle backs. When I think about the magic, it's the people. Definitely the people, because everybody was having a good time and everybody had a smile on their face, and there was so much laughter and chatter and, and people would just, it was just such an amazing feeling of togetherness. There was a lot more togetherness at that time. So there was like never a stranger. I mean, the park might have been full of people from everywhere, but you were all doing the same thing and you were all enjoying the same thing. It was just a feeling of camaraderie between people.
Once the music started happening in the park, they had so many thousands of people that were coming to feel that, to experience that. They needed a way to transport those people into the park. And so Ben and Mary visited, along with some other House of David folks, visited the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. And they experienced the fact that the Cagney brothers out of New York had built these small steam engine trains to transport passengers for whatever reason. Ben and Mary loved that idea. So after the World's Fair ended in 1904, they actually bought one of the steam engine trains from the Cagney brothers. They sent some House of David guys to New York to bring it to Benton Harbor, where they had their engineers, and they had a team of engineers that were world renowned. Their guys took it apart, every piece. They reinvented these steam engine trains better, faster, put them together, and they had 8 steam engine trains that were little passenger trains that they built their own largest railroad in the world for miniature trains, 15-inch gauge, which is a very nice, comfortable train. At that point, it really, really took off because they could transport so many people back into the park. Trains ran all day, every day, one behind the other, behind the other, behind the other. People would load at the North Deep Train Depot, where they could get a ice cream cone made by the House of David, where they made their own ice cream. They could board the train, go for a ride, half-a-mile ride back into the amusement park. They deboard the train at the South Depot. They could see the zoo. They could ride the little ponies. They could drive the little, they called them midget race cars, which were like little Indy cars from 1930. They were a replica of the Indy car. They could watch the orchestras and the nightly shows and the daily shows. And from there, it was like Disneyland. I mean, it's been related to Disneyland on a million different terms. And Walt Disney came there in the late 1940s and studied the layout and the way things worked because it had become so famous by then. It was the second leading amusement park in America. And he loved that idea. So he studied the park, the layout of the park, and I've talked to the people at Disneyland and the Disney history and the fact that Walt Disney bought one of the first House of David trains, had it shipped back to Anaheim for himself, and had a railroad built in his backyard. So, they touched so many lives. It was a huge, huge attraction that they didn't really intend it to be world famous for an amusement park, but it just became that.
Even though the House of David members were forbidden to take part in the consumption of alcohol, that didn't stop them from building a new beer garden after Prohibition was lifted. This was now another boom for the House of David and the amusement park, which was now becoming even more popular.
And as soon as Prohibition was lifted, the House of David, of course, opened their beer garden there, and that was extremely popular too. In fact, the first time I personally ever heard about the House of David, I was seated in a chemistry class that I didn't have much interest in. And the fellow sitting next to me, a kid by the name of Don Otto, said, "What are you doing this weekend?" I don't kind of nothing to do. He said, "Let's go down to the House of David." I said, "What's that?" He says, "I don't know, but they serve beer to minors. We can do it." I never got there.
They were very entrepreneurial people, and Ben loved, I guess, risk. You wouldn't think that religious order would, but he was all about very successful enterprises. And at the time, alcohol was abolished. You couldn't serve alcohol. Now here you have, 500,000 people a year coming to the park. They're getting entertained by music. They're staying at the park. They're coming to the zoo. They want to drink. They can't drink. Lloyd Gallagher told the story that he very clearly remembered Al Capone visiting the park with all of his guys. And Lloyd was not only was a catcher for the baseball team and ran the power plant, but he also drove the trains, one of the trains. He loved the trains. And he said, "Chris, back in the day, for some reason, he would be the one that would be asked to drive Capone and his guys around the park." And so he said that Capone would offer him money to take his baseball cap off so he could see his braided hair. And he said in the morning, the young guys, because they got picked on so much by tourists because they had such long hair, they would braid each other's hair real tight, wrap it around the top of their head and put their big poofy ball cap on. And that would hide their long braided hair. And that's so he said, "Look, Chris, that Al Capone would always plead with me, sell me your ball cap." And he wouldn't do it. He refused to do it. But he said he was told just to take them around the park. Don't ask any questions, just take them around. So he didn't know exactly why that involvement was there at the House of David Park, but we do know that history shows that the House of David was the first one to serve alcohol after Prohibition was abolished this side of the Mississippi River. And that was the biggest boom that money could bring to the park. And so instantly when Prohibition was abolished, that's when the House of David Park just went wild. They created what they called the beer gardens, which was a elaborate building right next to their beautiful amphitheater building. And they could serve all these hundreds of thousands of tourists alcohol. And to this day, there's a little, what we found when we bought the amusement park in 2009 was a little jail that was built into the side of the beer garden's hillside. So Lloyd said, Chris, there was a lot of people that would get unruly. And for one, he said, if your chin was taller than the bar counter, we'd serve you. So if you wanted to drink, you probably drank. And he said, and we didn't want to get the authorities involved. So if people got super intoxicated, they would either offer to get them home for no charge, or if they got really unruly, they went into the jail. And there's bars on there. Matter of fact, my daughter for her senior year got pictures taken in the bars. But and the jailhouses were way deep inside the hill, like tunnels, like caverns, men's and women's. And he said, we just let them sober up. We never called the police on people. We just put them in there until they dried out, and then they went home. But that was a big part of, I think, attraction during those years, was that people could go there and drink comfortably and be entertained, and first place in America almost.
We're back on House of David, Life Everlasting. Well, Chris, the amusement park, what you just saw, was kind of a huge part of the House of David, and it really probably, from all purposes, really is what gave it its big national appeal. It's why people wanted to be here.
Absolutely.
Why was this amusement park something that was just so new? I mean, and even the bigger question is, how does religious people come up with an amusement park?
Right. Well, the whole thought of the amusement park came from the big 85 group of Australians that came in 1905 and started the amusement park building right away. And by 1908, it was kind of starting in place. And it was one of the very first ones in all of America. Coney Island was kind of kicking right then. But the House of David in the Midwest, there was nothing like it. So, people could come however they could get here. Boat, trolley cars, horse and buggy in the beginning.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people realize when you think, oh, this is history. You don't really even go into how did they get here. They were coming over on steamships, like horse and buggies. I think the automobile was just very much in its infancies, but probably, I'm sure, had some people showing up. And after a few years, they probably had, just like all the big amusement parks do, people parking cars as they come in, or here's where you saddle up or where you hitch your horse, or whatever it may be.
Right. And they owned all the trolley cars and bus lines, early on. They had huge fields that their own people would park the cars or the carriages. And basically escort you over to the railroad where you'd get on the train. Yeah. Little steam engine trains, which were rare in America. They were not rare in Europe, but here they were. Yeah. And quarter scale steam engine trains, which fascinates people to this day.
Which I think is going to be part of our second season. We'll go more in depth into the trains, which was certainly a way of bringing people in and out. And when they had them, put them on basically a turnstile, right. in and out. One goes in, another one goes out. Being able to bring that many people in has really set it apart.
It did. And, they said that they had 8 steam engine trains going constantly, one behind the other, with passenger cars of people coming into the park. And millions of people, almost 100 million people visited that park. And
crazy.
It was just crazy packed.
Yeah.
And, 5-6 steamships a day coming into the ship canal in Benton Harbor, everybody bound for the House of David. So because they had music that was started by the Australians, the music in the park is what all the members felt that brought everybody together.
And it attracted all sorts. We got stories of Al Capone. We'll get into some of those stories later in the series as we go and talk a little more in depth about the amusement park. But before we do that, because our next 3 episodes are going to be about baseball, we're going to do 3 episodes of that. We're going to have our good friend Phil Dixon either in here in the studio or we'll get him on the phone. This guy is just a wealth of information about the House of David baseball as well as the Negro Leagues, which is where a lot of people that they played. And there was a big, I would say, a partnership between the two back in the day.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we're going to actually check out the baseball trailer. You can actually find this complete movie on Amazon Prime, but we're going to show you the trailer now and we'll come back and talk about it in a second.
So bear down. Bear down hard. Keep your eye on that old ball and have lots of pep, boys. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
Baseball was pretty much became an American sport in the 18th century.
There's controversy on whether it started in Europe or whether it started in America.
There are debates about Henry Chadwick or Abner Doubleday, who invented the game.
They didn't call it baseball in the beginning. I think they called it stickball. By the early 1900s, became America's by far favorite pastime. It was a big deal, big attraction. People flocked in. Benjamin loved baseball. He knew there was a lot of pent-up energy in these young teenage boys because they couldn't be with the opposite sex. They couldn't have girlfriends because they were celibate. They had a lot of pent-up energy, and he loved baseball and wanted to form a team.
House of David built a wonderful park, and that was the early origin. Many teams came originally to Benton Harbor, and that was the introduction of letting the world know that you had this great baseball right in Benton Harbor.
They made quite an attraction. The community was really looking forward to seeing the Negro team play against the House of David team.
Well, you've got good players on the House of David, but they were so dedicated to the colony and the mission that they weren't going to leave. So they stayed right there, where many of these ball players could have played in the minor leagues all over the country.
They attracted people from every walk of life. They set attendance records all over America, town after town after town, because they were so entertaining and they were such an oddity to see. People just wanted to come see them because they were so unique looking. And because they were good, that made it even better.
But I think that there's a story that is yet to be told.
They would take on anybody and everybody. They would often take on the winner of the World Series.
How many games they played against African American teams, what they did to break down the injustice that was across this country through just playing a little game called baseball.
Give you a low target here, That's the boy.
They branded baseball history in a spot that should never be forgotten.
We're back here in the studio, and I know that you've enjoyed that trailer. And the baseball documentary is, even if you think you know everything about baseball, you might even learn some things about baseball, let alone the House of David and the Negro Leagues. But it's an incredible documentary. We had a great time making it. Tell me, baseball, I guess really quickly, why baseball has been such a great subject, and why you even, I think, you talk about the House of David a lot, but baseball even more.
Baseball, they say baseball is America's favorite pastime, and that House of David was such an oddity. They were so talented, so much hair and whiskers and comedy, all on a baseball field. And back in the day, all big companies had their own baseball teams, not just pro teams.
Right.
So they barnstormed across America and knocked on your door in your town, and they were coming to play ball. And the House of David played some good ball, and and they were odd, and they were so entertaining, and they opened their lives up to the black teams that couldn't play in the major leagues because of their skin color.
Yeah.
And they partnered with them.
And not only that, they had a couple women that played also with them. We'll learn more about that as the series moves forward, but the next 3 weeks are going to be about baseball. We're going to talk about the origins of it. We're going to talk about the people. We're going to be talking about how they sweat their boys off as they drove around in the summer going from place to place. Yeah. So until next time, Chris Siriano, I'm Rob Bird. We'll see you right here on the House of David, Life Everlasting.
Telling incredible stories and keeping the past alive, Moondog Productions is proud to bring you the great history of the House of David in Southwest Michigan. Find out more about Moondog Productions by going online to moondogpro.net.
The House of David Museum is proud to tell the stories of Southwest Michigan's rich history. Located in St. Joseph, Michigan, the House of David Museum has a wide array of memorabilia for your viewing pleasure. To schedule a tour, call 269-325-0039.
Post-production facilities provided by True Blue Farms in Grand Junction, Michigan. True Blue Farms has been contributing to the overall health and wellness to people all over the world for over 100 years with blueberries. Find out more at truebluefarms.com.
Telling Southwest Michigan's history through radio and podcast. Rob Bird's Moondog Show and the House of David podcast are happy to be a part of telling this great story. Find Rob Bird's Moondog Show or the House of David podcast at podbean.com.